I was gonna do my. I had a juggling thing, but I realized it doesn't make sense for a podcast.
Prop comedy?
Yeah, it's a whole juggling routine that I came up with, but this doesn't make any sense. I was gonna juggle the angle grinder and a torch. But just it's not a visual medium, so I could be doing it right now and nobody would know.
I know. Well, I mean, you have the angle grinder. I mean, you're just like balancing it.
Yeah. Oh shit. We should. Number one, we could do a scar update.
How is it?
I feel like, did I talk about this on a previous episode?
No.
Okay.
I mean, it's been a while.
It looks great. I have been really, typically when I injure myself badly, I usually just wait until it there's no longer bleeding, and then I don't keep it covered because I'm lazy, I guess. But this time, because the injury looked so horrific, I showed you guys the video of it like flapping open, right?
No, I didn't see this.
Okay, so there's a video of it like flapping open like a little mouth.
Yeah. Talk about prop comedy.
Yeah. And since it looked bad like that, I have kept it covered more or less for whatever, it's been a month maybe. And once it stopped bleeding, even I cover it with silicone tape, and it has healed up to just a little line, and it is maybe a third shorter in length than it initially was.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It does look like a medical scar now. It does look like I had a surgery. So that's the update. I mean, I actually feel pretty decent about it. My big concern was that it was gonna heal in the flappy way, and I did kind of survey a couple people, and I was like, is this like too horrifying? Like, could I not ever take my shirt off in public with this? And they were like, maybe, maybe you're fine. But I feel like I'm in the clear. I had another scar on my hand that was created in kind of a similar way years and years ago, and I asked my friend, I saw him looking at it, and I was like, what's the deal? And he's like, that scar on your hand is disgusting. And I was like, yeah, it doesn't look great. And he's like, if I was at a restaurant and saw you preparing food and saw that scar on your hand, I wouldn't eat it. I was like, I don't think it's that bad. It's just like, see, you can kind of see like, this is 20 years ago, but it was, yeah. That's I know. He's being unreasonable.
Yeah.
I was like, you would fucking eat it and it would be delicious.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's right.
You would love it. All right, what else is on the list? We're going to talk about
Peter had a follow-up.
I did have just three little data points just to follow up on the car on the age of the post-mechanical conversation.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's things that I thought about while I was thinking about that topic and but forgot to get to. So just think of these as just like three little vignettes. The first is one of my favorite interviews of all time. Maddie knows what I'm talking about. It's the Wayne Taylor at last year's Rolex 24 at about 4 a.m. He's interviewed.
I'm gonna put this audio in. I'm gonna drop it in.
I've seen this. Yeah,
it's incredible. It's my favorite part. I mean, my favorite part of the interview is not this, but it's just it's 4 a.m. and kind of things are not going well, and he's just in complete despair, and he basically, it's like, I feel like Wayne Taylor. I love him because he just. He gives off the vibe of somebody who basically was put on the earth to suffer.
Yeah.
And it's just that's his duty, and he's having such a miserable time. But this is but just to recontextualize what we were talking about with that stuff is just the way that so much of automotive technology has moved past the point of being about mechanical things and has moved into the realm of the electronic and the computer and processing and
The software defined vehicle.
exactly.
Yeah.
So here's Wayne Taylor at 4 a.m. He says, when asked, I think the interviewer suggests to him that
I think we'll
this race will be a character building one. He says, well, yes, everything that could go wrong went wrong. Everyone did so much work. The guys have done a great job, but there's just these silly little gremlins that seem to have attacked us. For the 10 car, it's very disappointing. Lost power, and then they seem to get it all back together, but we were like 100 laps down or something. That is the problem with these new cars and these new electronics. It's really difficult to know what's going on. As soon as you see a car go completely black, you know something's haywire. And this is what had happened with one of their cars was, and this was the second year of the kind of the new hybrid GTP formula. And we saw a lot of this in the first year in 2023, and it hasn't happened as much this year, but it did at Daytona, and yeah, one of these cars it just completely it just stopped on the track and just all the lights off, no function, no anything, and it's like, what do you even fucking do?
Yeah.
And
I literally will go away from here, and I'll be sick in my stomach until the next race. Really, it's just, I don't know. Even after all these years, I don't know. It gets worse. I just don't get it.
And so that was him with that. And this is from a Vanity Fair article story from 2014 about the Air France flight 447 that crashed en route from Rio de Janeiro to Paris in 2009. And I remember I remember this one particular line from this story, and I think about it so often. But I'll just read you guys a couple of paragraphs. He says, Nadine Sarter, an industrial engineer at the University of Michigan and one of preeminent researchers in the field, said, look, as automation level goes up, the help provided goes up, workload is lowered, and all the expected benefits are achieved. But then, if the automation in some way fails, there's a significant price to pay. We need to think about whether there is a level where you get considerable benefits from the automation, but if something goes wrong, the pilot can still handle it. Obviously, this is talking about, like cockpit avionics and autopilot, but autopilot extending to total system automation. And it goes on, it says, Sartre has written extensively about automation surprises, often related to control modules that the pilot does not fully understand or that the airplane may have switched to autonomously, perhaps with an enunciation, but without the pilot's awareness. Such surprises certainly added to the confusion aboard Air France 447. And this is the line that haunts me. One of the more common questions asked in cockpits today is, what's it doing now? Sartre said, we now have this systemic problem with complexity, and it does not involve just one manufacturer. I could easily list 10 or more incidents from either manufacturer, Airbus or Boeing, where the problem was related to automation and confusion. And complexity means you have a large number of subcomponents and that they interact sometimes in unexpected ways. Pilots don't know because they haven't experienced the fringe conditions that are built into the system. I was once in a room with 5 engineers who had been involved in building a particular airplane, and I started asking, well, how does this or that work? and they could not agree on the answers. So I was thinking, if these 5 engineers cannot agree, the poor pilot, if he ever encounters that particular situation, well, good luck. So again, just another example of the way that we kind of invite these kind of technological advances with little regard to their kind of unintended consequences. And then the last one is just from my friend Herman. Just we've been Herman is a kind of Rochester bon vivant, old friend. He if you guys know the Fangio video that I made years ago with our friend Davey, R.I.P. Herman was driving the camera car around the Rochester inner loop, also R.I.P. Herman had a convertible Mini at the time, and so Davey was hanging out the back of that as we're driving around fucking this loop, this kind of mini freeway around Rochester at probably like 1 a.m, and it was March, and it was like 30 degrees, and Davey's hanging out the back with a borrowed DSLR, just shooting this. Yeah, good times. That's Herman though, and Herman's having some problems with his Mini. I don't think this is. I mean, he has a different one now, but he's had it for a while. It's like one of the Clubman ones, and says car runs great. Oil light keeps coming on. I think it's bullshit, but haven't been driving it too much. And then a few days later, he comes, well, I just went to Pick and Pull, and she sold me a dozen relays from various BMWs and a Mini for $16. I bought a fan. It was easy to grab and a few cosmetic doodads. Ha ha. I got the code reader to remove the check engine, but oil light still pops on. Levels are fine. Car still runs good. I ordered a new oil sensor off eBay. That's next. Ha ha. Then a few days later, I did some work on the Mini and must have upset the fragile balance. Oil pressure lamp is on. Check engine light too. And if you clear it, it comes right back. So it won't pass inspection. I have till end of November. Garage says giant job. Not worth fixing? Sadly, car seems to be running okay. Ha ha. And it's just like, like, why can't shit just fucking be a machine? I mean, all of this, like, these are all just examples of your axiom, Rory, of if it connects to the internet,
it is a piece of junk.
It's garbage.
It's gonna be in a
disposable
landfill.
junk.
Yeah.
And it's like, and here you have an example of like a race car that like is dead on the track for no good reason, an airplane that fucking falls out of the sky because the pilots don't know what the fuck is going on with it, and it's giving it was like a pitot tube thing or something where the it was just like a wrong sensor message was being sent, but like they had no way like it was giving them the wrong information about just like how they were oriented. Like they didn't know like their pitch. They didn't know that like these stall alarms are going off, and the stall alarms are false alarms, and so they're like they're like flying the plane down to try and get out of this stall that is not a real stall. And it's like they fucking flew into the ocean. And then you just have like an ordinary person with an ordinary car just trying to figure out, why is this fucking engine light, why won't it go off? I fixed the thing, the oil sensor, it's and it's like, and I'm gonna have to fucking throw this car away because it won't pass inspection with the fucking engine light on. And it's just, it's so stupid.
Yeah.
I'm currently, so the F-150 is a 95. It's an OBD1. So it is at the dawn of like more sophisticated like electronic controls in the car.
Yeah.
So like it's no longer carbureted, it's obviously fuel injected, and everything is controlled by a couple of little computer chip modules. When I got it, it ran perfectly for about a year, and then suddenly it started like intermittently, it would just turn off. So you'd be driving 50 miles an hour or whatever somewhere, and it would just turn off, and you pull over and it wouldn't start, and then you'd wait 20 minutes and it would start. So a bunch of research replaced like this ignition control module, and that seemed to kind of fix it, kind of not. A bunch more research, couldn't figure it out. And then one day I pulled this little like sensor out of the air intake, and it was all dusty, and I like cleaned it off on my shirt and plugged it back in. Car started up and ran great for like a year, and then no problems. And then like a few days ago, or during the like kind of heat of the Lada situation, I drove it down the driveway to pick up a massive package, just like a rooftop tent. Put it in the bed of the truck, drove it up, dropped it off in the shop or in the barn, and then parked the car in the entrance to the barn, and then like went to start it a month later and it would not start. And it has not started since. And there's no physical symptom whatsoever. There's nothing wrong with the truck. There's nothing, it's an intermittent thing and it's electrical. So there's not even like you can't even really rule anything out, right? Because sometimes it does work and sometimes it doesn't. But it's like, it was like, they got to that point with the electronic stuff and they were like, we should make this like 1 million times more complicated.
Right. Like, how can we take this and just like make it permanent and just like an inextricable from every system?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, whatever a lot of it is cost. A lot of it is like, you have emissions targets, you have fuel economy targets, you have power targets. You want to make huge power, while maintaining like factory warranty reliability, like all that stuff. And like those computer systems help you do that. Like there's a reason why, those Malaise era engines that we were talking about, which are footprint wise, displacement wise, enormous compared to modern engines, and why modern engines make way, way more power. And a lot of that is like all this, fine control that you have over fuel and speed and the way valves open and close and all. I mean, just a million different variables or whatever. The cost is that you can't fucking tell when something's wrong, and you can't. There's no, at least to me, and it's like, it's like I don't have a Ford dealership level. Actually, I do have a Ford dealership. I have the same equipment that the Ford dealership would have to read my car currently. Yeah. But like I don't have that obviously for the Rivian or whatever. But the Rivian, the fucking electronic, the internet thing the other day, like they didn't know. They were like, I don't know. It was like,
yeah. Did you ever get your Knight Rider?
My car. No, yeah, it just came on. Just randomly came on one day.
Classic.
Like,
yes.
It was like it just updated, but it was like I was on the phone with the person and she was looking at it and she was like, yeah, I don't know. She's like, I guess we'll send somebody up there in November, and I was like, okay. And then I was driving around and it was like, oh, can we update the car? And I was like, why don't you wait till I'm at home first? And I did, and it updated and everything worked. No, everything didn't work fine. Everything showed up. The Knight Rider stuff showed up, and then I had to like do this like hyper complicated dance of like connecting it from my Wi-Fi and then turning it off and then driving far away from the Wi-Fi and then turning it back on, and then it like just kind of randomly came on. So yes, I did get it. No, I don't know why or how.
And are you driving around like Knight Rider? Is the kit dashboard pretty sick?
You can't drive like that.
It's just for parked,
when you're
right?
Stopped.
What about the dash though? The dash looked pretty cool.
It looks cool. Yeah, it looks just like the Knight Rider Dash. And the kids were obviously the whole thing of the Rivian is that it is a car for elder millennials who have like Back to the Future references
and Knight Rider.
And
yeah,
I told the kids like it's gonna have a Halloween costumes or whatever. And then I showed them that, and they were like, "We've never seen any of this IP
like
before."
This is from 40 years ago. What the hell is this?
This is like a Benny Goodman or this is like it's like, oh honey, the car's playing the Chattanooga Choo Choo. Get out here. Just totally no frame reference.
It's telling Abbott and Costello bits.
Yeah,
who's on first?
It's like this is. Yeah, I don't even recognize this as like a human. It's like any part of my world. My real question, important question, is what do you think the coolest car company is?
Huh.
I have an answer for it if you're ready, but I want to hear yours first.
Cool is such a subjective, like, to parse. Like,
yeah,
wow.
That's a tough one. I mean, I'm almost tempted to say
Bristol.
Well, Bristol's not around anymore. Bristol were pretty cool. I think Christian Koenigsegg is a really interesting dude.
But the cars
and I think those cars. I mean, I kind of think they are.
I mean, the cars
the
cars are cool in a vacuum, but like
as well, even in the context of
their owners
of kind of. No, not even. I mean, I don't even. I know nothing about their kind of owner. Well, I can imagine their owner demographic.
Yeah, come on.
But in the kind of space of the
supercar,
kind of hypercar kind of world, I think those cars are really interestingly kind of understated.
Yeah,
and the tech that goes into them is very interesting and thoughtful in a kind of in a way that I kind of associate with Swedish stuff with Saabs, you know, kind of the like I was really rooting for him to buy Saab, to rescue Saab when that shit was going down, because I felt like that would be a natural fit, because even then he was making those cars at that point, and in kind of the same way that I mean, I think a lot of what I really liked about Saab was just kind of this unconventional thinking, and I mean, Saab, like we were talking the other day about the way that kind of a lot of the kind of basic the form of the automobile, you know, which had been pretty fluid in its early years, you know, by the time of you know, post World War II, like all of that stuff had more or less been solved. It had been decided. You know, it's like this is basically how a car is going to work, and Saab had been an airplane company up until that point, and it was only then that they started designing cars, and they took a real kind of clean sheet of paper approach to the process, and in a way that kind of just led to like really interesting and like I say, just unconventional design choices, and not in a stupid way, like you know, let's make the transmission work in some way that nobody is going to understand how to put it into drive. but like the great examples that I always just would point to on my car, on the SPG, and I would imagine this applies to all classic 900s. So when you go to check the oil, right? I mean, every car dipstick is more or less the same, right? It's a super narrow, either like a 2 or 3 millimeter wide strip of metal, or it's just like it's not even a strip, it's just like a rod that goes down into this equally narrow little tube that you got to stick it into, and it's hard to read, it's hard to get the thing back in there. The Saab the Saab dipstick, it's like half an inch thick wide, so you pull it out, and you don't have to look closely at it. Like, you can hold it out at arm's length and just be like, oh yeah, okay, I'm either good or I'm not good. And then when you go to stick it back in, the tube that you stick it in is like, it's like probably like 1.5 inches or 2 inches in diameter. So it's like, you just stick it in the first time you can do it. And I think part of this is like all the controls in the cabin are designed to be easily operated with gloves, because it's Sweden and you're going to be fucking cold. And maybe this is like part of that thinking, but it's just the kind of thing where it's like, all right, this is a very trivial element, but it's like, why are all dipsticks not like this? It's so much easier. It's so much quicker. It's just better, and like, that's the kind of like fresh thinking. And there's lots of other examples of that. But I feel like the Koenigsegg approach to making a supercar or a hypercar is kind of a similarly, what's the word I'm looking for? Just kind of, just non-traditional, not confined by
innovative
kind of conventions. Yeah, innovative.
Yeah. I mean, I think like, and David Tracy, when he went to visit them, he came back trying to teach everybody how to say the word. He says Koenigsegg.
Koenigsegg.
Yeah,
Okay.
Which I don't know if that's correct or not. I do like them a lot, and I think like, if I had to have a hypercar, that's probably what I would like to have. I just like that shit. Those cars are so cool and they're so fun to drive, but it is so fucking embarrassing being in one. And I hate to say it, but like all of them, and I have driven a lot of cars that have that general form factor, and it's weird to say it because I know like the customers who buy them don't feel this way, and I know like probably like when I see one on the road, I'm like, oh cool, there's a McLaren, or oh cool, there's a Koenigsegg or whatever. Like, I don't hate them automatically.
I don't think I've ever seen a Koenigsegg on the road.
If you go, yeah. If you go to Pebble
I guess.
Beach,
Well, I guess if you go to
them.
Pebble, yeah, sure.
But driving that stuff, you feel like the biggest fucking dork in the world. And I think like
I can imagine
getting
that.
out,
Yeah.
like people are expecting Batman to get out, and then you get out and they're like, oh, like what the fuck? Like, like seeing the car is a big fucking production. And then if just a normal guy gets out, you're like, Jesus Christ, what's going on? But
you gotta up your style game, man.
I don't think there's anything you could do. I think like this is just not a man who, and it's like most of the people. That's the thing though, is like most of the people who drive, like nobody hot has a Koenigsegg or Koenigsegg. Like if you were hot, you wouldn't need a Koenigsegg. You just buy a normal car. Like if you're like so most of the people who buy them are trying to like impress people with their cool car, and they always look weird. But I don't think that a car that is built listen, Christian von Koenigsegg or whatever would not say that his cars are built for rich people who are trying to demonstrate their wealth. He would say they're engineering exercises, they're works of art, I think. And I think he would be right.
Yeah.
However,
no, I think that, I mean, that's exactly what I think. And it's just his rich customer base that of douchebags that makes that possible.
yeah. However, I don't think that if that's the car you're building, you can be the coolest car. I don't think coolest car company. I think like if the function of your car in the world and the way that your car exists in the world is that, then I think fundamentally that you're tainted. You're tainted with a level of uncoolness, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I think you. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I guess I don't even think of it in terms of like, would I own it, because it's such a completely absurd proposition. It's like, in what world would it be possible for me to, it's like that's a meaningless criteria to me, and how I would be perceived driving it is equally meaningless.
You're an automotive journalist. You could drive a Koenigsegg.
Yeah, well, I mean, that'd be cool. Somebody should let me do that.
Maddie, what do you think?
And I'll write about how cool they are.
Coolest car company. If I think about like, what do I want a car company to do? It's like, and who's doing it? I don't know. I feel like my guys at Toyota are kind of like, they make a good product that I like. Also, they adopted lean manufacturing in a way that like they made everybody else do it, which is making life a lot better for my day job everywhere that I have a day job in the past couple of years. So it's like, I don't know. Holistically, I feel like Toyota's really done me a solid, and so I'm kind of gonna go with the home team.
You do kind of owe them.
It's like, they like made Americans, because there was like a guy who wrote a book, a Western guy who wrote a book that invented the whole thing of like Lean and Six Sigma and all that. But Toyota were the first people who were like, we should do that.
Yeah.
And then everyone else was like, we got to do the fucking Toyota shit. And that's what they say still
The
now.
Toyota way.
Manufacturing is like, do the Toyota shit. Yeah.
Does Toyota still have their 100-year plan that they... I remember reading about this years ago, that this is like a part of their corporate culture, and the idea is that they revisit it and revise it every 5 years or every 10 years, just based on where things have gone, but that the kind of corporate philosophy was to just take the long view to just this radically absurd degree, right? Where it's like, no, we're the decisions that we're making now are based upon what we project is going to happen over the next 100 years, which feels so kind of counter to just kind of the way that we currently understand capitalist industries to operate.
That's a quarterly plan.
Right.
Yeah.
No, exactly. So I mean, it's obviously it's something that it's kind of disregarding the kind of the shareholder. It's just like, whatever, we're gonna do our thing, and you're either with us or you're not. But I always just thought that was really interesting, and I don't know if that's still a real thing.
I don't know if it is or not.
Have either of you guys ever heard?
That sounds vaguely
of that?
familiar to me, but I would totally believe it. I mean, like, that is how Toyota operates. My pick is Nissan, and I think like you kind of have to do it like you do with bands too, where it's like eras, or like where you had like a run, like, or like a sports team, like you'll go on a run, like whatever, you're good for, 5 seasons or 6 seasons or whatever. But I think Nissan from like, say the late 60s to the early like even like into the 2010s had really like very cool vibe, like where it was like Nissan was never like the biggest car company, never really like never really at the top of anything. Like they weren't the most successful racing company. They weren't the most successful as far as sales. Like they never really were the best, but they did just like, I feel like the ratio of like cool shit that they put into the world in that period versus like ho-hum shit is like outstanding. And it's like if you go back and watch like there's a really good documentary about them running 510s in like 72, and I think that whole thing is on YouTube, and it's like how they, like Johnny Morton and those guys, like how they made those cars competitive. It's so like so low budget, but also like, you know, so impressive that they went out. And then like the whole Paul Newman thing in the 80s, and then like going to Le Mans, like they did a lot of very cool shit, and they had like the 240s, 260s, 280s, whatever. They had all the Z cars, obviously, but like the Maxima was super fucking rad. The like their regular like workaday type cars, the Sentra SER, I think I talked about that last episode. All the little little trucks, the like cool hard body, like like I said, the ratio of like cool Nissan shit in that era to regular workaday, even up until like the early aughts, the Z cars, but also like the some of the Infinity stuff, like the FX, like that was wild. And like I think like for me, like a car company can't be too successful or then it becomes kind of uncool, you know, like if they're too good, it's kind of like, you know, it's like they lose a little bit of cred. But it's like Nissan to me was always just seemed like, you know, it's like Bristol, I think, is my like stock answer of like the coolest car company, because it's like, are they going to make it? Are they not going to make it? Like, why are they doing this? Like, this is so ridiculous. It's like that. There's like with Bristol, like there's a level of like not giving a shit that you can't be really trying. Like it's like no one's really putting an effort here into this car company. Like it would look different if somebody was trying, but it's like. But Nissan has always been like on that edge of like, you know, delivering a quality product at a I think like a value oriented price. And then like GTR, like all this stuff where it's like, we're going to make a car like the thing that there's that Porsche ad that came out in like the early 90s that was like, oh, be honest with yourself, you didn't grow up with a dreaming about owning a Nissan or whatever. And it's like, yeah, but the Nissan is faster than your car right now, or like you know what I mean, like like and like that was, I think like that's cool, like that is like it's like this little value brand, like whatever, the fourth biggest Japanese car company is building a car that like will outperform a Porsche, and like that's cool. A GTR, like the cheaty ass GTR coming out, I think we talked about this last episode, but it's like that car where it's like, yeah, you know, we don't have what Porsche has or Ferrari has or whatever, but like all of a sudden they're going to have to change their entire philosophy around building cars because we're in the car magazines stomping their asses with our fucking GTR. Like that to me is very cool. And I think where it went wrong, I think there's like an alternate timeline. Do you remember the Nissan ID concept that was like,
yes,
2014?
Yeah, the kind of Neo 510. The Neo 510. Yeah.
And it was like the idea was a small sedan that would be affordable and sporty for like younger customers. And it was like,
yeah,
they got close. They had like a very roughly production ready looking concepts, and like the plan was to build this car, and I don't remember why they didn't, but from there it felt like the company never really regained its cool. Like it never really, but I think historically it's a cool brand. Like it's a weird little, but like good enough to be respect. You know, like there are a lot of like weird little brands that just make super shitty cars, and you're like, wow, like this, what are you doing here? But like the Nissan stuff was good enough and like did enough, accomplished enough racing wise and like the quality wise, like in the world, that like they were trying, they were making a real effort. And I just like, they have that like underdog, but like underdog that succeeds sometimes thing. I don't know. I think it's Nissan to me. I don't know.
Interesting choice. I mean, yeah. I mean, definitely Datsuns have loomed large in my kind of personal cosmology of cars. In high school, my high school bandmate had a I guess it's the 720 pickup, the kind of the 70s pickup, and we would and just totally like just base level, you know, completely unmodified, eggshell white, long bed, 4-speed, I think, maybe 5-speed, probably 4-speed. But we would just take that thing up into the hills, you know, where they were building new houses and just fucking like get ourselves into all kinds of impossible situations, just like off-roading, you know, and we I think Maddie, you've heard some of these stories.
I was thinking of you hanging off the back and they're yelling, "Jump hard!"
We would like, you know, drive into these areas where, like, you know, we're at the bottom of a ravine or something, and the only way to get out is to go up this dirt hill that's like some pretty crazy steep angle, and the way like the only way that we could get out of it would be to deflate the tires to like, you know, like 10 psi, and then I would be hanging out, you know, I'd be like literally on the tailgate of the truck, like hanging off the back just as ballast. And so to get, but somehow we always managed to get home.
That's a cool car.
That was good. That was a very cool Datsun, and I mean, we still today, to this day, kind of refer to it just as the Datsun, and it was you know, a legendary car in our world, and actually car that I learned to drive a stick on was a Datsun 200 SX that I had in college. Car that I just did not appreciate at the time. It was that kind of the 70s to early 80s generation. I think the one that I had was like an 81. So it came in the kind of the either the notchback coupe or the hatchback version.
See, that's what I'm talking about. It's like, and that's a regular like workaday car that a college kid could buy, and they're fucking. That's cool. Like they're like, look at a picture of it today.
Dude, I beat the shit out of that car. I really I did not care about it. I just took it, you know, and I was kind of going through I was in college and not having a good time, and I really just fucking abused that thing to my shame now. And I think about it now, and it's like, man, that car was like a Japanese rear-wheel drive, 5-speed manual, fucking Japanese Monte Carlo. You know, like what like probably weighed like 2,500 pounds tops. You know, like how freaking cool! Like a car that will never happen again. You know, and it's like, shit, man, I would love to have another one.
Yeah, no, like if you were to drive that car, like a new version of that car today, you'd be like, this is incredible. Like this is yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but like that was like Nissan was doing like the weird stuff, and like the enthusiasty, like I said, like the ratio of like boring.
They were sneaking stuff in there,
but it's like even their regular cars, like.
Well, no, that's what I mean. Like just, like the V6 that they put in like those late '80s, early '90s, mid '90s Maximas, like, and they put the same that same V6 in the trucks too. The drummer of my band in the '90s, he had a Nissan hard body truck that was his like pride and joy. We toured in that, and two people in the front, one in the back. We had like all the gear stacked on one. It had a camper shell, so you had all the gear on one side of it, and then on the other half, like lengthwise, longitudinally, we just went to the surplus store and bought like a big thing of foam rubber, and you basically just had like a bed in the back. It was awesome. Not super safe.
It doesn't sound that
awesome. But it was great.
That rocks, dude.
But man,
that's peak indie rock vehicle right there.
He loved that truck, and that truck had a 5-speed too. I mean, super sweet engine, and they did do. I mean, don't forget the, what was it? That crazy. Well, they did two really interesting, and I mean, this was just in the teens, in the 20 teens, right? There was the Delta Wing. Thing that was a Nissan.
Oh, and then the front wheel drive
project.
Le Mans car.
And then that crazy, that front wheel drive car that they brought to Le Mans, and just, which was completely radical, front engine, front wheel drive car, like competing in the top class, whatever,
Prototypes,
was it GT1 or what? Completely radical design, completely unconventional, and I mean, that was the bummer thing, was that they just ran it the 1 year, and it's like, oh well, it didn't work out, and they just gave up, and it's like, well, of course it's not gonna you're not gonna get returns in one race, it's like you gotta like develop it, and it's like, it was such a cool.
This thing looks crazy. I'm looking at the Delta
really
Wing
cool.
right now.
Actually, the one time I went to the Lane Museum in Nashville, that car was there. Not the Delta Wing, but the
front drive.
I don't remember what the front drive car was called. But that thing was super cool.
I mean, and I think that's like the cool thing about Nissan too, is it's like this little under-resourced company just kind of, but it's like they're just taking shots. Like every now and again they'll take a shot. It's like, oh, we're gonna go to Le Mans. Oh, like, or like we're gonna develop a supercar, or like or whatever, GTR. It's like, to me, it's just like it is such a difficult thing to imagine a company of their size doing today, where it's like, it'd be great if we had 4 crossovers, but what we should do is try to go to Le Mans, or like and it's like, or like we're gonna build a supercar that's gonna like take on Lamborghini and Ferrari. And it's like, what purpose does that serve really for you, Nissan? Like, you know what I mean? Like, why in a million years would you do that? But
the Nissan GTR Nismo. Cool.
Yeah.
Huh.
It's good. Nissan.
It looks sick.
Yeah.
Looks good as
Is
hell.
that the Le Mans car?
No.
Or is that
The
just
GTR LM Nismo?
Yeah.
It came up front wheel drive Le Mans car. Pretty cool.
The other thing too about Nissan is that I think is cool is like, to be really cool is like, you have to you like have to be able to afford the car at a point in your life where you're doing cool shit. And I think like the affordability part of Nissan's like MO is like super important, where it's like, you know, if your primary client is like retirees or people who have recently sold their business, like not a lot of cool shit's happening in your car. You know what I mean? Like they might be seeing some track days, they might be seeing some Angeles Crest time or whatever, but it's like the cool shit that I did in cars was in my 20s and 30s, and like those cars, like it necessarily had to have been, you know what I mean? Like it's the affordability thing plays into that, where it's like
See, I would say though, I mean, by the criteria that you're setting, and that you're kind of you know, that you're electing Nissan by, I might argue that Mazda might be cooler in the same way, and just because I feel like over time, and again, I mean, I feel like I don't know, things have changed so much in the last 10 or 15 years that it's hard to judge companies by what they're doing at this moment. And definitely, I mean, Nissan has made some pretty bewildering decisions, and I mean, argue, you know, it's like, I mean, they're still in bed with Renault, and like that, it seems like that's more of a global, you know, is Nissan even Nissan anymore, you know, and Mazda kind of has taken this thing of just kind of, well, we're going to move upscale or whatever. And, but for so long, in the same way, Mazda was very similar in like that idea that they would kind of promote that, and I would argue that this even existed before the Miata was introduced, but the idea that there's a little bit of Miata-ness in every car that Mazda makes, like, I think it's kind of true. You know, totally. I mean, at least in my experience driving those cars over the years, and I did own a first generation Miata for a long time, and it's funny. And when I bought that little Protege, just because it was cheap and available, and it was funny. Like I got into it, and because I was just jumping out of my Saab and into that, like, you know, the first few weeks that I was driving it and dailying it, I you know, would think about it in terms of, well, how is it different from the Saab or whatever. And then at a certain point I realized it's like I'm comparing it to the wrong car. It's like the car that this car reminds me of is my fucking Miata, you know, because it had the same kind of, that really direct steering, that same, you know, just that really the turn in and the kind of responsiveness and nimbleness and very linear, you know, not powerful, but it felt quick in a just light on its feet way, and I feel like every Mazda, I mean, even, you know, I mean, my wife has a CX-5, you know, and it's like, that's just an SUV, but it's like, but sometimes it still feels, you know, it's got a little, I mean, it definitely behaves
that's
different from other SUVs that you drive.
Dave,
you know?
Coleman, who's like he's one of the engineers at Mazda, and I think he used to be an auto writer. I forgot what publication he wrote for, but he does a lot of the like steering and braking and pedal tuning for them, and it's like the feel thing is super important with Mazda. I would say, like,
no, that's their whole religion, you know, and it has been forever.
But I would say I would give Nissan the edge over Mazda, because to me Mazda is primarily about the Miata. And like they did the RX-7, they did some other cool stuff. They won Le Mans, but they don't have a truck really. I mean, they had like the Ford rebadged Ford stuff. They didn't have like.
Was it a rebadged Ford or was the Courier a rebadged
the
Mazda?
Courier I think may have been the rebadged Mazda. I'm talking about like the Mazda Navajo and like the later
whatever.
stuff.
I'm talking about the real shit, man. Don't forget that in the 80s, Mazda was doing so much, dude. Like an 80s Mazda 626. Dude, those cars were so cool, and there were so many fucking rad Mazdas that never made it to the U.S.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to talk about like genuinely weird and funky and fascinating cars. Look at like the Mazda Cosmos from like the mid 80s ones. Oh my God, the wraparound greenhouse. And those were like dual rotors or like tri-rotor. I think like the one that went into the 90s, it was like a 3-rotor.
That's true. You got to give. There's a lot.
Those things are psycho.
You
cool.
get a lot of credit for doing the Wankel rotary engine, like well past everyone knowing it was a bad idea. You do get a lot, like, and really like you can tell Mazda still desperately wants to have a rotary engine, and it's like everybody.
Oh, they keep talking about it. They keep they keep trying to figure out a way to like shoehorn it in and have it make sense. As just like, well, it'll be our generator for the EV, and it's it'll be an EV with a rotary.
It is it's like just not a good idea for an engine, and they're like they're still trying to figure it out, which I appreciate. Mazda, I agree. Like Mazda crossed my mind. And I gave the edge to Nissan, but I also like,
and actually, and if we're talking about things just in terms of eras or streaks, I mean, for me, pretty tough to argue with Citroën too for like all of the 20th century.
Yeah, I just have a bias against them because they're French.
I mean, for me, they embody the coolness of Frenchness, and little of the rest.
Yeah, I guess so. I think I'm not a big, but I think I agree. I mean,
I'm not a big I'm not a Francophile, but
I think that
I just there's so many of those cars. I mean, most of the cars that Citroën made in the 20th century are just like insanely ahead of their time for their eras, and were so like
original,
incredibly innovative and original in ways that I think are pretty unparalleled.
Another good episode would be just like talking about like making a list of car companies and explaining what they were about to like the people who are like not car people listening to this, which I think are most of the people.
Listen, most people, I promise you, don't even know like which like brands are actually like owned by the same like from the same like family tree or whatever. I promise you, that's like they're.
Well, it keeps fucking changing.
True.
I mean, I mean, the thing is, like, I know most of that stuff, but it's like at this point, I kind of give. It's like, Opel is part of Stellantis now.
Is it?
Like what?
I think
so.
Everything's under Stellantis now.
The
Shout out to the striking
Vauxhall.
Stellantis workers, by the way.
I would love to do a like.
I mean, what the fuck even is Stellantis?
Yeah.
You know?
Okay, brands under Stellantis currently: Abarth, Alfa Romeo, Chrysler, Citroën, Dodge, DS, Fiat, Jeep, Lancia, Maserati, Opel, Peugeot, Ram Trucks, and Vauxhall.
Wow,
Vauxhall. Yeah.
Vauxhall.
That's wild. I would love to do an episode on
they're
like
British.
Panhard. Like let's do 2 hours on Panhard and the Tiger.
Yeah.
Maybe one of these days.
Yeah. I mean, there's basically only like 3 or 4 car companies
That
left at this point.
Toyota, Stellantis.
It's like everything else.
Yeah. GM. Well, there's more than that because there's.
Yeah.
But
ever fewer.
Well, no, I would say like we're actually on the upswing.
Although they keep inventing new ones.
Who knows? Actually, another fun episode, depending on how long I stay unemployed, would be we could take bets on the longevity of some of the new ones, like who's going to be the first one out. You know, like obviously Fisker was doomed from the jump.
Well, even just like, I mean, speaking of Stellantis, I mean, a Stellantis death pool would be.
Chrysler,
I mean, that's
how
pretty
long
obvious.
does Chrysler have? How long? I mean, they're laying the groundwork right now for axing a couple of those companies.
Oh yeah.
But it's a weird thing being a car enthusiast because like you find yourself rooting for like big corporations at times where you're like, oh, I hope they do well, and it's like, I don't do that with anything. You know what I mean? Like, it's like a lot of it is like I know people who work there, and I'm like, I hope they're okay or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like fucking Microsoft could go out of business tomorrow, and I'd be like, would not impact my life in any way. It's like,
right.
But you're like, you know, I look at the company's quarterly earnings, and it's like, oh, that's troubling. Like, I don't like that. When things are down or when they're up, you're like, oh, good for them. But it's like, I'm not rooting for literally any other type of company.
Verizon.
Yeah. You're like, come on,
Verizon.
Don't take that shit from T-Mobile. You gotta draw a line in the sand here.
Nintendo finally goes under. Everyone I know is fucking dancing in the streets.
Nintendo, yeah, poor Nintendo.
Evil company.
I know.
Evil company.
I know,
they
but
suck.
But a company,
They suck.
a company
they gotta go.
But they.
I'm gonna hit Mario with my car, man. It's over.
It's too bad. Who would have thought it would have come to this?
He's gonna. It's me when Nintendo goes under, and I'm gonna shoot Mario myself.
Yeah.
JPEG of the guy crying with a gun.
I know it's hard.
It's too bad, man.
It's too bad. We had something special.
Yeah. They'll put a cute little guy in front. They'll jingle their keys in front of you all day, and they're like, "It's Mario. It's your friend." No, shoot him. Shoot him. If you see the Mario in the street, kill him.
It's too bad.
If I do this again next year, then I'm an idiot.
You say that to me every race. All right, when you know.